slow going, and it was, I think, 600 km. It's relentless. However, the Gibb River Road was fantastic. River crossings with salt waters. Everyone was warning us leading up to the Pentecost, which is like the final crossing. And everyone was warning us, oh, there's been sightings. There's going to be salt waters. What are you going to do? When we got there, we asked a few people, and there was one typical bogan, let's call him, from Queensland. And this bogan wasn't impressed with our endeavour. And unfortunately, they were sort of giving us a lot of fear. Oh, there's so many, they're going to eat you. And I think Ben took that as a challenge. He was like, let's go, And I'm so nervous. It was like the scariest 2 minutes of my life crossing this river, Oh my gosh.
Welcome to Seek Travel Ride, where we share the stories and experiences of people taking amazing adventures by bike. Whether it's crossing state borders, mountain ranges, countries or continents, we want to share that spirit of adventuring on two wheels with our listeners. Hello listeners, it's Bella Malloy here, host of Seek Travel Ride, and I am absolutely pumped for today's episode. Now, when most people set off on a bike adventure that's going to take them around the world, I can normally sum up their motivations in one of these type of categories. They could be seeking out to complete a big challenge. Maybe they're fulfilling a passion for travel at a pace that's faster than backpacking, but it's more immersive than other types of travel. Or maybe they're taking a sabbatical from the working norms of our society, looking at ways to immerse themselves in new cultures as they explore breathtaking landscapes, see the sights at a much slower pace. But for our guest today, their bike adventure journey is about something else entirely. Emily Hulbert is cycling across the world with the purpose of delivering clean drinking water to communities that need it most. Through her project, The Water Cycle, she's bringing water filters to villages around the world where safe water is far from being a guarantee. Now, I've been following Em's journey for the past year and have been absolutely captivated by the authentic way she shares her stories, seeing the real human impact that clean water is bringing to people living in places far off the beaten path. It's taken me this long to convince her that she'd be an amazing guest for the show, and I cannot wait to learn about her experiences from taking on such an impactful project. Emily Hulbert, you absolute legend, finally welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bella. Wow, what a beautiful introduction. I'm so excited to finally speak to you.
Oh, I'm super pumped, Emily. I know that today's episode is going to be full of good vibes, good feeling, and good energy, which are three things that you bring with your personality there. And I can't wait to dig into your experiences. But Emily Hulbert, the question I start my show with, and I ask this of all my guests, is, do you remember the very first bike you ever rode?
It's funny because I've been listening to your podcast now for probably about a year and a half, since before I even left. And every time I hear this question, I have to dig deep into the history of Em. And I honestly have no recollection of the first time I rode a bike. I would say a lot has to do with my huge interest in football growing up. I think I always had a football on my foot, so I couldn't be riding a bike. However, I do have some pretty good recollections of my first bikepacking bikes or bike touring bikes, which I'd be very happy to share.
Oh, totally.
Okay, so I was living in the US for 4 years studying, and I just graduated. And my friend told me that she had a job over in Oregon, and I was living in New York. And I just had this idea, had no concept of bikepacking. I thought, okay, I would love to drive over with you, and I would love to cycle down to the Mexican border on a bike. So let me get a helmet, put it in the back of the car so that I remember this idea the whole trip. And so we got to the north of California, and we got to a Target store or a Walmart, and we checked for the cheapest bike. I think it was $70 US. It was absolutely horrible. And I remember I bought it, and I had about 10 or 11 kilos in my bag, and I just set off south towards the Mexican border with just absolutely no idea what I was doing. I'd barely ridden a bike. As a kid, obviously you ride bikes, but I didn't know anything about bikes, maybe just how to adjust the seat. I camped on the beach the first night and a wave came and just washed up the tent. Like, it was a real disaster, Bella. It was really horrible. I absolutely hated it. I'm not going to lie. It was a really tough week.
Oh my gosh. You know what, Em? People do those challenges now for like YouTube videos for internet clicks. Like, can I ride the cheapest bike from Walmart from here to here? Oh my gosh, I'm just picturing you on a real clunker. Like, who knows how many gears it even had? But 11 kilos in a backpack. I have actually done that before.
Oh, it's horrible.
Oh my gosh, is it what? Whoa, and it puts so much pressure on you, like derriere, like the saddle sores you get from it is horrendous, right?
I think I hitchhiked half of it, to be fair. It was really horrible. It was really hard.
Do you know what even gave you that inclination for doing it in the first place? Like, had you seen people doing it?
Absolutely no idea. I had yet seen anyone or heard anything about traveling by bike. I'm really not sure. I think it was just, 22-year-old just, I had no idea what to do, and this sounded like the best thing. Yeah.
What a wild experience. I feel I'm going to dig into that, but I actually want to wind back to something else you said, because you mentioned about football and having a football at your feet more often than not. It was something that I discovered when I was being your internet stalker for the last week, figuring out my interview questions. I think I've tricked through every single Instagram photo on your page, Em. And I never realised the footballing aspect of your story, but you're pretty apt at that. And listeners, when we're talking football, I guess for Aussies and listeners in the US, we're talking soccer. Yeah, so football played a huge part of your life, and you played it pretty competitively as well, right?
Yeah, you're right, Bella. I guess growing up with two brothers, I was born in just south of London, father who also played football. Yeah, I became really, really obsessed with football. I think from 5 to 22 years old, it was my life. Yeah, I played quite competitively in Australia, also in US, and then in Europe for a bit, before realizing that, I wanted to explore the world. So I think I was 22. I was playing for Melbourne City.
Wow.
Yeah, and the season was starting soon. It was in like the training period. And it's quite a long story, but I ended up faking a back injury and taking a one-way flight to Cambodia, in which I didn't return to Australia for 3 years, and partly to do with COVID. But yeah, I was really seeking adventure. I was really seeking a new life. So yeah.
Because I imagine, like, with football, there's that athleticism and that competitiveness and that sport aspect to it. But I guess seeking adventure, I imagine there's also a real rigidity to training regimes and structure. Was it a sort of looking to break free from that?
Yeah, you're right. I felt it was very limited. I think I turned up to training with a surfboard in my car, and then that was frowned upon. I remember thinking, I think it's my time now to really start exploring, adventuring, and finding out somewhat of a new identity for myself, because I really was just that football girl or soccer girl for quite some years.
Because football in Australia as well, and I know that college football and stuff in the US is huge, and football's becoming, like, women's football is becoming bigger, I think, globally. In the UK. Like, in Australia, like, oh my gosh, the girls, the Tillies and stuff in the last Women's World Cup, that was huge.
Yeah.
Do you feel if that had happened a few years earlier, like, I'm not saying football has grown huge amounts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel you would have broken free? If football had been a even bigger career path, do you think you would have just, that adventure seed in you would have just burst out anyway?
That's a really good question. And I do think about it. I remember watching the Matildas in the last World Cup, and it was just fascinating, amazing to see the support they got. It was so amazing.
Absolutely.
I was in rural China, and it was on a TV in rural China, and I was like, that's amazing. These are some players that I played with, my real role models that are on TV in rural China. However, no, I think, the curiosity was to explore the world would have definitely still taken over. I think also, like, I'm quite a nervous person, and playing at that high level is just was very nerve-wracking. So every day I would wake up like, oh no, I have to train, I have to perform, and I just don't think it really matched my personality. Yeah.
It'd be a really good connecting tool that you'd have with people that you're meeting in different communities all around the world, because it is definitely the global game.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, when I first started, traveling and backpacking deeper, I used football as a tool to connect, and in anywhere. I think I was in Myanmar, and I was really nervous. I was probably 22, and I was quite worried, like, wow, I don't know anything about Myanmar. an American man, he'd sat me down and told me, like, what are you doing here? There's a genocide going on with the Rohingya people and it's not safe. This was a time of somewhat peace in Myanmar. You were allowed to travel it. And anyway, I found some boys playing football on the street. And like, that was my initiative to sort of, okay, let's feel comfortable in a country. I'm going to play football with these boys in the street. And, they were just really like surprised to see a woman playing football, show them a few tricks. And they took me around the city of Myanmar, in Yangon in Myanmar. And yeah, I think football is an incredible tool to connect. And in bikepacking on this bike trip through Southeast Asia, there's been so many times where I've seen a group of generally boys, but sometimes girls playing football, and I'll just drop the bike instantly, go over, show them a few tricks that I might still have. And just recently in Vietnam, these boys were just so excited. They started rubbing my legs and then rubbing their legs as if to exchange some skill or something.
Some talent. Oh, I love it.
Not that I'm that good.
Oh, yeah. Not that I'm that good. There's the modesty coming out. But there's a concept of when you're on a bike as a woman, and you would have had this probably a little bit as well, of men just underestimating your strength and not liking if you overtake them. We call it being chicked. So I imagine you've done the footballing version of being chicked to a few people as well. I have to say, slight tangent.
Yeah.
And it's sort of reflecting back, I was saying how much the women's game has grown in the last few years. I sort of think, now, I'm clearly older than you, Emily. I think probably by, I don't know, definitely more than a decade. And I grew up with a Greek-Italian background, absolutely loving football as a kid. And it was sort of not the sport to be played as a girl growing up at school when I was younger. And I went to a school where we were only allowed to play girls' sports, and girls' sports was netball. And I absolutely hate netball. I despise netball to this day, because all I ever wanted to do was kick a footy around the field and score and stuff. And I just sort of think it is cool to reflect back that even in this type of generation, moving on just a decade on, that you had those opportunities, and moving on now that, I have great friends with little ones who watch the Matildas at the World Cup and literally aspire to be a Matilda. Like they have, that is their goal, and that is really, really cool as well. But football is definitely a global game, and there are many bike travellers I've interviewed who've remarked on that, especially in Africa. I'm thinking of Rob McLennan and Jude Krewald. Both of them commented sort of like, football is such a conversation starter. It's a barrier breakdown, and it has gone to every remote village in Africa.
Absolutely. I think I remember one of them was bringing football cards. I think it might have been Jude.
Yeah, it was Jude.
What an idea that is. I think in India now, I'm in India, I think I need some cricket cards. But
oh, yeah, absolutely.
They ask, where are you from? And all I have to say is Ricky Ponting, and they're just so excited. They know every single cricket player.
Absolutely.
It's so cool here.
And, sport is sort of that breakdown. But I love the idea that you are connecting with people through these other mediums as well, and learning a bit more about them through that. It's a great conversation starter. We've sort of got an insight into how you started with bike travel with that trip down to Mexico. I'm sort of getting this vibe for Emily being that sort of free-spirited adventure seeker. You obviously love travel. You have a passion with people as well. But obviously this at taking it to a basic level, that's obviously a big part of your personality trait as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm really lucky. I was born with sort of courage in my pocket, adventure in my pocket, happiness in my pocket. Like, I'm really lucky. I didn't have to search for that. And yeah, sort of my second bikepacking adventure, just to sort of clarify that, I was in Indonesia, and a man in Lombok, which, if you know, is a bit further east of one of the islands, amazing place. He told me that he had a sick cousin in Sumatra, and he asked me what my plan of travel was, and I didn't really have one. I was a bit loose, and I said, I think I want to try riding my bike. And he said, would you take this package, this medicine, to Sumatra? And I just remember thinking, that's exactly what I need to do right now. And I went to Java. I started in Java, and I bought a bike off a young boy, and it was absolutely terrible, Bella. Like, bikes. I don't know bikes. But when the bike makes a crunching noise, and anyway, I went to buy it off him, and his whole family just came out to watch me. There was no way I could say no to this bike. And it was so bad. I physically had to change the chain to change the gear. Like, I had to moved the chain. And Sumatra was not that flat.
No, I've heard it's like, is it like a volcanic island?
Yeah, they're
Super steep too, right?
steep. You're right. The Indonesian islands are so amazing, but some of those hills, they're so steep.
Leg breakers.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. So that was really, really incredible adventure. And I think that's really what concreted the idea that I would love to travel around the world with a bicycle, but a better one.
Because you have done a fair amount of travel that wasn't bicycle related before that as well. So travel is a clear passion of yours too.
Yeah. I think I respect everyone's journey in life, but I just could not sit home at Melbourne and just wonder what they're doing in Kazakhstan and how they live in the jungles of Thailand. I just have to be there. Like, books are great, documentaries are great, but I just really, really, really have this passion to feel it. I'm sure you do too.
Oh my gosh, this show has expanded my map and geography so much.
You have the best show. Oh.
It's almost like with every interview with a guest, I learn about another area. And I know I'm really looking forward to listeners later on in the show. I can't wait to talk to you about China, Emily, because you just recently spent a month there. But I feel your time there would have been amazing and special because you can actually speak the language there too, can't you?
How do you know that? Yeah.
That would be such a conversation opener for you. Oh my goodness me.
Yeah, I'm very lucky, Bella.
So is it Mandarin that you've learned?
Yeah, you're right.
How did you learn Mandarin? I'm trying to learn French and I'm doing really a poor job at it, and I've heard it's a hard language, but my gosh, Mandarin's got to be like 100 levels up from that.
That's a good question. Mandarin, I wouldn't say I found it in my pocket as well, but it just so happened about 5 years ago that I started teaching online during COVID because I was a bit stuck over in the Canary Islands, actually. Amazing part of the world. Have you been to the Canaries?
I haven't, but it is much more accessible from where I live in the world now compared to where I was in Australia.
Pretty magnificent. I was there for a couple of years during the COVID pandemic, and I had no way out. So I started teaching these absolutely adorable little Chinese and Vietnamese children. And I realized quite quick that firstly, that I was very interested in the culture of China and the language. And I realized if I learned it, I could help them much more. And I just became fascinated. So I started somewhat just like learning during my classes. And now it's been 5 years. So if you imagine about 10 hours to 12 hours a week, I'm on someone's screen in China and I'm using it as a tool to learn Chinese and have just the best time. And then I've spent maybe a few months in total or 3 months in between Taiwan and China, and it's been an amazing journey. Yeah, good language.
You know what? It just makes sense to go there right now rather than wait for later in the show. I want to talk about your time in China.
Yeah.
Sorry, listeners, you should know by now if you listen to the podcast. This is not a logical step point through someone's tour anyway. But tell me, what was it like to get to China then, and be in a country that you'd studied the language of for so long, and maybe you'd visited China before you were there on a bike, but being on a bike, I feel you're more immersed in it. What was it like to get there, and what were you excited about the most?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I have spent some time in China. I did a 6-week sort of backpacking tour which encompassed about 20 of my students, and they live all over China. So that backpacking trip was purely to visit them all in their own provinces. And China is incredibly diverse. You can go 10 kilometers down the road and have a completely different cuisine. As you probably know, that Chinese people love food. They love talking about food.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. Have you been to China?
No, but I love food and I love talking about food. So you have to talk about Chinese food to me as well.
All right. I would love to. So I think I wasn't sure if I had this bias on China of how amazing it was, because I was always sort of with my students' parents and they were just so incredibly hospitable. I thought, okay, I can't wait to ride my bike just to sort of get, that deeper understanding of the country and the people. And oh my gosh, it's just incredible. I think if you speak to most backpackers, at least ones I've spoke to will agree, the hospitality is amazing. China's an interesting one. In the West, I think it's safe to say in general, we have quite a negative opinion on China, be it some anti-China propaganda. Chinese people abroad are also quite different to the ones that live in China. And so going there is just incredibly eye-opening. It's such an amazing place. And so I guess just to sort of understand the entire month, I could just tell you the first day, and that pretty much just describes every single day after that.
Well, tell me about it. I always ask people to tell me about one day of their trip, so tell me now.
The first day, okay, so I rode over from the Vietnam border into a city called Ho. And the thing is with China that most bikepackers also experience is it's very challenging as a foreigner to travel China, even with the language, because like Google Maps, you forget it doesn't work. You need a VPN to access most of the internet because of restrictions. So you end up there and you don't really have any idea where to go, nothing's in English, no one speaks English. It's such a challenge that it almost feels like it probably was traveling about, 50 years ago, because you're really just surrendered to talking to people or trying to use gestures. So I entered China and I just started following a river. I knew I had to follow a river. I had no plans to stay anywhere that night. I just wanted to camp out. So I started cycling, and within about 10 kilometers, I got stopped by government workers, I think, what I call them. And they asked me, have you eaten? And I said, oh, I'm hungry. And they invited me to eat. So we went into a building and there was all this hot food prepared. And I love Chinese food. It's really, really delicious. A lot of varieties, a lot of vegetables. And I'm sort of asking them, because I can speak enough Chinese to ask, what are these meats? And anyway, he said, this one's dog.
Oh.
And if you want, we can get some crocodile. Oh my gosh, this is bizarre. So I'm sure you want to know if I tried the dog. Or maybe you don't.
It's such a mental thing, isn't it? Because we grow up with dogs as pets, and it's really hard. And I'm not a vegetarian. I've had chicken when I was growing up. We reared chickens to eat our own chickens, but even that was really, I feel hypocritical about it. But I don't think I could keep my own chickens to eat now. I guess I'm a hypocrite. But did you try dog? It's a hard. Yeah,
I did. I tried a very small mouthful, and to be honest, in Australia, I am a vegetarian. In Asia, on the bike trip, less so. And I guess it didn't really surprise me, the taste. I guess it could have tasted a bit like beef. There's so much flavor going on anyway, besides the meat. Anyway, so besides the meal, they said, where are you sleeping tonight? And I told them I wanted to camp and if they knew a safe place. And they said, yeah, actually you can camp here. We've got air conditioning. It's very hot. We've got internet. Set up your tent in this sort of shelter. And then the gifts started coming. And every single worker in this sort of region is very, very remote, this region as well, the border, came with a gift for me in a sense. I got a full pineapple. I got a tin of soup. I got all these gifts. And then, they're talking amongst themselves, what can we give her? And this man just starts, climbing a tree to get a papaya, and he makes this delicious papaya salad, and he tells me this will keep for at least a day, so have this tomorrow. Anyway, I went to sleep. The next morning I woke up and they were waiting for me. It was raining. They were waiting for me outside the room, and they said, okay, time for breakfast, we can take you for breakfast. And this continued for 1 month. Incredible hospitality. And the main thing that I would hear is Zhongguo Anchuan, which means China is safe. And they really want to sort of show this rhetoric, that China is safe. We are harmonious. We want peace. And it was really beautiful. I think speaking Chinese was really helpful. The scenery, the landscapes, Bella, incredible, massive hills and mountains, which I came to finally love.
And the climate would have been much different for you too, coming over, like being in that type of terrain, but at a higher elevation, I imagine. So it's not the heat and humidity of Southeast Asia that you would have been dripping with sweat with every single day either.
This is true. It was really comfortable. And the safety that I felt was incredible. I just decided, I'm just going to camp everywhere. And I woke up the last night camping. I had a friend join me for 10 days. She's a lovely friend from Barcelona. I wanted her to join me just so, again, I wasn't feeling overly biased. I wanted someone else's opinion of the experience. And we managed to make it all the way to the Tibetan border, and it was just incredible. But anyway, the last night we woke up and I could hear someone outside the tent, and we were in quite a public place. And I opened the tent door, and there was just a man taking selfies on my bicycle. The two men, and one of them's on my bicycle getting his photo taken. And then they see us, and then they start taking photos of us. And it's very innocent. I think a lot of people could find it very annoying. constantly being asked for a photo, but it's quite innocent and quite cute. It was quite funny.
And it's also, you're so unique there as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I remember a previous guest that I interviewed, Jessie Brown from Northern Ireland, when she was talking about Bangladesh and being in Dhaka, and she was talking about, I forget if someone had said, oh, wow, there's I don't remember, like a unicorn or a dragon or something like here, would you want to see it? Well, of course I want to see it. So I'm no different. I've not seen, she said, I was in areas where they hadn't seen a white person before. It was just very, very different. And so I could imagine it would be a bit like that for you there as well. It's just, and I guess for them, the other difference is that they could actually speak with you and not through a translation sort of barrier maybe as well.
Absolutely. I think I forgot to mention that in this province, this is Yunnan province, it's in the south there are a lot of ethnic minority groups that are still living very much as they would have 1,000 years ago. There's the Shawnee ethnic group. They live in the rice terraces there. And to have a conversation with them, they have limited Mandarin, I have limited Mandarin. But to have this conversation just blew my mind. Just even if it's a very basic level conversation, just to have a laugh with someone that comes from a completely different realm. It was just fantastic. Yeah, it was really, really amazing. And I'm so lucky and so grateful. Yeah, really cool.
Wow. I just get excited seeing your facial expressions talking about it, because I can see just how energizing it would have been for you to be there as well. So I need to wind you back, Emily Hulbert. We've fast forwarded so far on this. We've got an idea of, your zest for travel, how you sort of happenstanced into bike travel. And you obviously really, really jibe with that and love seeing the world on a bike. You wouldn't call yourself a cyclist though, would you?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. In fact, I think if I go back home, I'm not sure how often I'll ride my bike.
It's very different as well. I sort of see it as tools of the trade. You love this form of travel, so doing it on a bike makes sense, but it doesn't mean that you like pedaling your bike and that you wouldn't do it for sport. You'd be picking up a football again, right?
Yeah, or being in the ocean, hey. I'm really lucky
surfing, exactly. Which brings me to the idea of water, which is a nice little segue into the whole point of your trip, the water cycle. Oh my gosh. Listeners, I gave you a hint of it in the introduction. And this is how I first came across your story, Em. My algorithm is obviously pretty well tuned to bike adventure, and I got suggested one of your posts, I think it was. And I was fascinated by this person having an amazing bike adventure with such a sense of purpose, delivering, water filtration units to places. And I was like, whoa, this is so amazing. And I, have happily been engaged with your stories ever since. But how did you get the idea of doing this?
Well, that's a good question. So initially, rewind a fair few years, maybe 6 years ago, I started traveling with more of a humanitarian perspective. I tried, dabbling in a lot of volunteer work. I started to become quite upset, dissatisfied with inequality in the world. And from, I think, about 24, I had a big dream to start my own youth center or school in which children could access education that might not have the means to, maybe even a meal. It was quite a naive idea, but a massive dream, and it still is a big dream of mine. Obviously, a lot of things have changed since. So my original plan was to ride around the world, fundraise to create this center. However, I realized that let's say I ride around the world, I have $10,000, I would have absolutely no idea where to start and a lot of pressure. So I realized, okay, I'm not ready for this. This is a big dream, I'm too naive. And so I started looking into other avenues of help. I think as bikepackers, we are on the apex of privilege. Even if we decide to travel on $5 budget, even if we have hard days, absolutely. We sit in a very, very lucky position. We have a passport, generally a good passport. We've got home. We've got incredible support systems to be able to do this. As you know, a lot of people will talk about this in your podcasts, which I can't wait for you to have a podcast. And there's, a girl, India from maybe a slum area of Mumbai, or, a small boy that's grown up in Indonesia and takes on an adventure. And I think hopefully the future can be, you're interviewing these people. However, I think that I took this sort of privilege as a bit of guilt, and I realized that there's a huge responsibility to be able to give back on these adventures, especially after so long traveling the world, perhaps a bit selfishly, which I think is fine. Everyone's on a journey and we all learn a lot as we travel. But yeah, I just definitely felt a need to give back. So fortunately, water filters I came to know about from an incredible brand in Melbourne called Zorali. They're an outdoor brand. They previously were a surfing brand. You might know them. They're really amazing.
Yeah. I've seen Zorali in my feed.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they make like outdoor gear and stuff as well.
You're right. They previously were a surfing company, and they went to Philippines and they went on a big mission to deliver clean water. And that's when I first saw the impact these filters had, not just as a way to mitigate the water crisis, which is much more serious than a lot of us realize until we sort of look into it, but also plastic pollution, which in Asia, as you know, probably, as most of us know, yeah, it's really quite severe. So yeah, water filters sort of fell into my lap, this idea. I have a really good friend. She actually joined me in India yesterday. And yeah, sort of together we coined the term water cycle and contacted a few NGOs, sort of understood a bit more about what they were, how they could help, did a bit of research and started a fundraiser. Yeah, just started the cycle.
With that, you literally have water filters in your panniers, and I imagine you get restocked along the way somehow. But how do you choose, do you choose do you know where you're going to give these out, or is it a case of it's so obvious you don't need to choose where you're going, you're seeing the need and giving them when you see the need?
Yeah, so good question. We started with an NGO called Waves for Water. They're global. And in Indonesia, they helped us, they directed us. And the irony is that the first day we were learning to use the filter, unfortunately, one of the representatives, he put the filter on upside down and I drank a full glass of dirty water and I got incredibly ill for, I'd say about 4 days. I was knocked out completely, as you can imagine.
I cannot imagine. I've just come off really bad food poisoning, which has given me such a high level of empathy for every bike traveller I've ever interviewed who's been sick. And even then, I was in the comfort of a home. So I cannot imagine that.
Absolutely. Like my empathy levels rose to the next level.
Through the roof.
Yeah. And so we delivered 25 filters in a small rural village in Lombok. And then what happened since then has been really amazing. It's been a mixture of connecting with NGOs, connecting with a lot of water-based non-government organizations. However, I've been in situations where I've been staying somewhere and I thought, oh my gosh, I have a filter. This is going to increase, the standards of living for these people, or it's going to mitigate a lot of plastic. And it's just been such a beautiful gift to give on the way.
Bigger than anything else you could give too. Something that really makes a difference. It's something that really strikes me whenever I see one of your stories.
Mm.
There's been times where I've seen your stories, I've almost been moved to tears, like happy tears, at just the impact you're having. It is just amazing. It brings me actually to another question, which I've actually asked you and we've traded voice messages on this before, but there's a very known phenomena called vicarious trauma. And it's often in the social work circles where a social worker who's helping out somebody just through knowledge of what's going on in their story actually takes the burden of that person's trauma on, and there's vicarious trauma. And I remember posing the question to you of, when you're in these places and you're seeing the level of impoverishment and, lack of basic access to things like clean water, is there a level of vicarious trauma that you feel on your shoulders as well? Like, do you feel that sense of vicarious trauma and those sense of emotions? And I don't even know what emotions I want to feel. Like, is there a sense of Western guilt, or I don't even know how to phrase it properly?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I remember you asking this question and you sent me into some deep thought. It was beautiful. I was climbing a mountain thinking about it. And yeah, I think what I said to you and what I still agree with is that going to these communities and seeing the resilience of the people is incredibly wonderful in a sense. Of course, there's a lot of anger that I feel, Western guilt, absolutely. But what I take from it mostly is that in our modern society, I think there are many costs to the way that we live in the West. and our modern society, ecological collapse, a lot of toll to human psyche. And I think there's a big danger at the moment with lots of community. And we did talk about this before we started recording. And you mentioned how in the French Pyrenees, you just repair and you feel community and how
every day there's community. Wow. Yeah. You can't live in your house here with a closed door expecting no one's going to knock on the door, because people do, which is lovely.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think we're in an interesting time in human history where even at the political level, we see fracturing at national levels, community fracturing. We don't longer depend on our neighbors, our friends so much. We're a collection of individuals in quite a lot of places, I'd say. And even within the home, we spend a lot of time on our phones. We have an iPhone, and I think that's why it's called an iPhone, because we have algorithms that are catered to us. It's very individual. And so when I go to these communities that lack basic resources, obviously I feel very sorry. I feel guilty for my immense privilege, but absolutely I'm filled with hope, filled with joy in a sense of just how beautiful their community values are. And I think that conversations like these, your podcast is incredible. Any way in this current day that we can bring people together, that we can build these communities, I think it's really powerful. I think it's underestimated. And yeah, thank you for all you do as well. It's really amazing.
I feel like I do such a small little part. I was slightly a bit down in the dumps the other day. Maybe it was the food poisoning and sort of at one point thinking, I don't know where this is going. And it sort of struck me, often when people go on a bike adventure around the world, they come back to change because they've experienced that community and they've seen different cultures, and that change sparks conversations with people they know and changes things. And sometimes I think maybe my little thing is I do have the joyful moment of having listeners get in touch telling me they've listened to the show and so it sparked them to do their adventures. And so I sort of think, maybe that's the way I'm paying it forward. Like,
yeah,
they're going out and they're going to be changed and they're going to change people. And very slowly, our 0.1% of the population will make a little bit of a ripple. But I think what I loved about your answer, and when you sent me a voice message back when I first asked you this question, it was something that was a total blind spot to me because I haven't lived and breathed it in the way that you have. So I'm seeing this video of like children, running around really happy, putting water filters on buckets and, they can have clean drinking water, and I'm just going, oh my gosh, I can't imagine what that's like. But your answer was all about, it's hard to feel bad when you're surrounded by people that are so happy, because that was something that you had also said was invariably the people I'm seeing, yeah, they don't have a lot, but they're actually happy. And it's not to say that they wouldn't want for more opportunities. Of course they would.
Yeah.
But they're also, I don't know how to put it, they're still happy within their community, and there's a solidarity there that helps them day to day. And I thought that was really, really beautiful as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, interesting. I just finished a really good book called Tribe by Sebastian Younger. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
Oh, I haven't, but I'm going to seek it out.
It was very interesting, and it drew on the fact that back in the World War II, during the Blitz in England, that men longed, after the war was over, they longed for the Blitz. They had some sort of mourning for this period of time because it was a time of helping each other. It was a time of real humanity and bringing each other together. And another thing I thought about when I read this was how in Australia, we love a natural disaster. And obviously no one longs for, we don't want a fire, we don't want a flood, but it really brings the character of the Australian spirit. And
it does, looking out for each other type of thing, and that mateship and all that sort of stuff.
Yes. So I think that, do we need a natural disaster to reinforce and evoke a sense of community? But I found that very interesting, and I see that a lot in Asia and the world, and I think it's really, really beautiful. I think we are built for companionship, connection.
Yeah, and I guess surviving together as well. I think it was a guest, Charlie Walker, I'd interviewed not too long ago, and he mentioned the same thing about people who grew up in, wartime in Britain, looking back so fondly of, rations and the Blitz and stuff, and it's exactly the same thing that you're talking about there as well.
It's interesting. It's an interesting psychology.
Yeah, really, really interesting psychology. Are you listening to the podcast as someone who is currently on a bike adventure, or maybe you're a bike traveller who's plotting out your next bikepacking trip? Well, if your adventure is going to be taking you through regions where clean water is hard to find, you can make a difference by carrying and delivering a water filter. My recent episode with Em Hulbert highlights her amazing project, which is called the Water Cycle, and Em is encouraging other bike travellers to get in touch with her and get on board in water filter delivery. If you would like to get on board with this amazing initiative, send me an email, podcast@seektravelride.com, and I will put you in touch with Em directly so we can make this water cycle community grow even more expansive and bring clean water to more places that need it the most. Okay, now back to the episode. I'm going to change tact a little bit. I have a couple of questions that I have got from people that you know, other bike travellers. I love doing this. It's something I've done recently, and I actually think it's really cool because it's one thing for me who's, you know, a super fan vicariously living through your travels every day. But for people who've actually met and spoken with you and know you a little bit better, I always think it's really cool to get their questions through. So the first one is a written question, and it has come into me from Matt Whitley. Hi, Matt. You're a legend as well. And I know that you've met up just recently. Matt wants to know, well, he's actually got a few questions. We've answered a few naturally. Of course he does. Matt, one day you'll be on the show and we'll ask you a few questions. He says, how can people get into cycling as a solo woman? What tips and things have you found helpful, and what countries would you tell solo women to start in?
Wow. What a great question, Matt. Also, I'd just quickly like to say that, yeah, I did meet Matt in China. He rode 160 kilometers to make it. Thank you. And he is totally on board with the water cycle. And I'm going to get him some filters sent for...
Oh my gosh, Matt, breaking news. Well done, legend.
Yeah, and he studies sustainability, and he's a very intelligent young man. And I think he's going to try to get to Afghanistan and Iran and see if there's a need. And I'm really, there's a really beautiful connection. So yeah, thank you, Bella. I'm sure you were you initiated it.
Brilliant. Actually, can I just say, before you answer Matt's question, just on that point, I know that there's lots of bike travellers who tune into this podcast. If there are bike travellers who are interested in getting on board, what's the best way that they could get on board with the water cycle?
Oh, wow. So yeah, just send me a message. I'm really lucky. I'm in connection with a supplier from California, and he's amazing, and he helps get filters to locations, and I would just do my best to get filters around. So yeah, please send me a message if you're interested, or if you want to join me pedaling, that would be fantastic.
Awesome. And I'll stick Em's contact details in the show notes. What's your handle on Instagram?
M Hulbert, I think. Yeah, my name.
M Hulbert, @M Hulbert. So, okay. Now answer Matt's question.
Okay, Matt. Okay. Traveling alone as a solo female. Wow. I actually have rarely had any problems in the last 14 months from Australia to China in which I felt I was in fear. I felt like I was in a dangerous situation. However, camping alone, as you've interviewed a lot of women, it is a bit daunting. It's a bit scary. I think in one moment in Cambodia where at 4 a.m. I had a few flashlights on me, and straight away when you wake up to that, unfortunately, it's true. You think, okay, like maybe that's a few men and maybe they've got a sick interest. And unfortunately, that's the mindset and the narrative. However, it was a women's running group at 4 a.m. They were so excited to wake me up.
That is so random. I would never have thought that. My mind would have thought imminent gang rape or something. And that's horrible to even say out loud. But that would be where my mind would be racing. No,
we have to have these conversations, right? Because absolutely, I think I've actually got like a strange mechanism to cope with camping alone. And it is, I sort of just tell myself, and you're really not that important. And these people are just fishing, like get over yourself, and they're not all out to get you. It helps me sleep at night. I don't know if I'd suggest it to everyone.
I like that as a tip.
Yeah. You just, they're just, going about their daily life. Like you don't need to be in panic all the time you hear someone talking. Maybe stay vigilant, but at the same time, tell yourself you're not that important. And they probably think you're a man. I absolutely love this idea that if they see a tent and a bike, they probably do think it's a man.
That is everyone's default, that it's a man in there.
It is.
I've shared that a few times on this podcast as well. Something that I came across just quickly as well, before you finish off answering the question though, is someone said often when you're wild camping on your own, it's the noises that you hear that start the racing thoughts in your head. And someone's actually suggested wearing earplugs. I don't know how I would go doing it, but I could see that as a plausible way of actually reducing that sort of... because earplugs don't remove a noise totally, but they probably remove those distant noises and those rustling noises from an animal or something that could make you think that there's someone bad out there. So, yeah, anyway, if anyone has tried that, please let me know.
Yeah, I love that idea. I do love to wake up to the sound of the birds and all that, but I think, to have a sound sleep would be great. And I think Matt also asked a country to start with.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. Obviously, Australia. I think China. China was incredibly safe. I didn't have any problems. That's a good question. I do think the world is incredibly safe for female and male. Maybe that's just a bit of gullible faith. However, I think maybe Europe. Europe is a lot of bikepackers. Yeah, I think anywhere. Let's give it a go. However,
yes.
I'd like to just share, I've been in India for a week now.
Oh, what's that like? Because that is like the spotlight on you big time, right?
Yeah. So I had to fly over Myanmar from China. And so I landed at the airport, just had a few hours sleep in the airport and the sun was up. So I sort of assembled my bike and I just rode off, rode into Kolkata.
Oh my gosh, just the visual of I just rode off into Kolkata. Like, honestly, chaos.
Chaos. Absolute. What a contrast. Like,
abso-freaking-lutely.
Oh, you've got these two massive swelling economies. You've got China, 1.4 billion, India, just a few more, biggest population now. And in China, didn't feel that, densely populated, at least not in Yunnan. However, oh my gosh, in Kolkata, it just felt like 1.4 billion people had just descended on me. All those eyes and wow, what a contrast. So I rode straight through the city and I thought, okay, I want to get to a place called the Sundarbans, which is where the Bengal tiger is. So I spent the first day riding 100 kilometers down there and I arrived. Such a contrast. You've got people on the streets in Kolkata, still plastic pollution. And then you've obviously got a lot of wealth as well. So you've got massive inequality in India, which I thought was quite obvious from the start. And so I rode down and it was about to get dark. So I got to a town and I started asking around for a hotel. Okay, is there a hotel? Hot. I didn't feel comfortable camping. I hadn't had enough smiles during the day to feel comfortable in India yet. And I asked a place. They said, no, we have no room. Go away. I asked another place. And they said to me, okay, vegetarian or non-vegetarian? Well, no, I want a hotel. Yes, vegetarian or non-vegetarian. I just thought, well, where am I? What's going on? Am I going to have chickens in my room if I tell them, non-vegetarian? I just had no idea. And anyway, it turned out, I think, because I've had a bit of a similar experience in Kenya, it might be some post-British colonial thing, but I think hotel might also mean restaurant. I'm not sure if you know or anyone knows.
Oh, I've heard this. I think Pete Costello. Hey, Pete, you're a legend. And Pete is just coming back from a really bad bout of malaria. Legend that you are. He mentioned this to me as well. I think it was in Kenya or Tanzania or both. That often you'll see the words hotel, but it actually means restaurant.
Okay. And during this commotion of wondering what I was doing, I was circled by about 10 men. No woman in sight, 10 men all just staring at me, emotionless, like just staring. And then obviously trying to understand, like, what does this girl want? Why is she on a bike? Why does she have shorts on? And then one of the gentlemen could speak English and he said, okay, go to, there's a hotel right there. And then I had this sort of horrible thought, oh, no, like these 10 men, plus probably the whole community now, they know I'm staying in a hotel. And I'm not sure if it's like a valid fear. I think, there's some horrible stories in India, absolutely horrible.
There have been.
you can't always live off the stories, as you know from everyone will tell you on the podcast. But yeah, it's a little bit different in India, I'd say. I definitely don't feel as safe as I have for the last 14 months. However, I'm quite glad my friends joined me. My amazing friend who helps so much with the water cycle. She's just phenomenal. She rode with me in Indonesia for a while, and she's going to join me for the next month.
Oh, let's give her a proper shout out. Hello.
Yes, no. Honestly, without her, hundreds of people less would have access to clean water. She's just been super amazing. She's an incredible photographer, videographer, and just a super awesome human. So Shawnee Turner, she's just amazing.
Hey, Shawnee, you're a legend.
Yes.
I'll have to have you both on for a session at some stage.
Yeah, actually, she's gone to look for a bike right now.
Wow.
Let's see what she comes back with.
Something you mentioned there, though, that I think, you were sort of about feeling bad about thinking about stereotypes and stuff.
Yes.
There's a flip side where I think there is an immense power in trusting your own instincts as well. And if you have an instinct, then something doesn't feel quite right. I think whether you're a solo female or a guy out there or even a couple or whatever, if you feel that something's not quite right, trust that. I think we have our instincts for a reason, and I've spoken to a few guests about that as well. And what's the worst thing that happens if you trust your instinct? You make changes and you become safer in another place. Whereas, I think that's the right thing to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Yeah.
So, I did say I have 2 questions. The next one is from previous podcast guest and super fan of the show and of you, Emily, and that is David McCourt. Oh my gosh, how could I not get David to ask you a question? I know that you've met up with him as well. He's an absolute ledge.
Absolutely.
Listeners, you've probably heard I've got 2 episodes with David now from his amazing long way home tour from Australia to Cushendall in Northern Ireland. And this is David's question for you. I'm going to play it through the microphone.
I'm so stoked to listen to your episode with Bella. I've mentioned your incredible energy on the pod before. You're a super inspiring and uplifting person, and I'm sure that anybody who's met you will agree. So my question for you is, every now and again, life will throw us a curveball, or maybe even throw us a few curly ones in a row. When you're cold, sick, tired, angry, or have had a not so nice encounter on the road, what motivates you to come back to a positive headspace and get stuck back into it? How do you manage the challenging times on the road? Cheers and keep at it, you legend.
Oh, David.
Isn't he a legend?
He is a legend.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. Thank you, David. You are such a huge mentor for me in many ways. Thank you. And yeah, it's a good question. So I've been thinking about it lately because I've been, I guess, having a few tough days in India in many aspects, not just the patriarchy, but also the road conditions, the heat, the smells, just seeing the inequality. And I think I came to this idea as I was pedaling the other day that as hard as a day is for a bike packer, as horrible as the hills are, the weather, the mud, you end up somewhere at the end of the day or the next day with a great meal or a roof over your head or a call from mom. Shout out to my mom, she's amazing. And
hi, Em's mom, you're amazing.
I think that, when I compare this to some underprivileged people that I'm cycling past throughout Asia, who don't have these luxuries, they don't have, this sort of like, everything's going to be okay tomorrow, we just got to get through today. This is my decision. They don't have that. And I think that's really inspiring for me. I think to know that, yes, I'm having a bad day, but I'm so lucky. I've got an amazing community. I've got support. I've got enough finances. I've got my beautiful Chinese students, which I teach. Yeah, I think it's very hard for me in my incredible position to actually get that down when I reflect on this. And yeah, I think that those people that are living in quite challenging conditions, whether it be in an abusive relationship or they don't have food or they don't have safe water or they spend 6 hours a day fetching wood or water. That's just incredibly inspiring to me. And so, I think that might be my answer, David, that I'm just really, really grateful. And I think gratitude is an incredibly powerful tool to maintain positive.
I've seen that message from you in a post before. It might have even been in poetry because you are a bit of a poet, which I love.
Thanks.
And that idea that, you know, gratitude and gratefulness is something that we need more of in the world. I think that's such a great answer, is that we're choosing this hard moment. We made a choice to be here on this bike with this incredible privilege to do what we're doing. Like, so reminding yourself and grounding yourself with that thought is sort of your go-to.
It is my go-to, and no discredit to the amazing backpackers, bikepackers, travelers out there. Like, no discredit, or it's an amazing journey we're all on. Yeah.
And you've met a few bikepackers on your journey as well.
I've met quite a few. Yeah. Just recently, Maddie and Rick in China, really great boys. David, obviously. Yeah, I'd love to meet more though. So if anyone wants to join.
Oh yeah, because you're planning on going over the Pamirs and stuff too, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll slowly make my way to Europe. I don't really have any sort of destination or route or timeline. And I think I'm in an incredibly lucky position because I do have my students, which I think I mentioned before. So financially, I could probably sustain like quite a long trip, which most bikepackers don't have that.
I think that's actually a good point to raise, because often, and I know I've brought this up with other guests, but it is a question that many listeners have, is how do people fund this type of long-term travel? I think the answer is that you're doing it on a pretty cheap budget, but you are working, like you're legitimately working during your trip as well. It's not a case that you're on a jolly holiday either. And when you have returned back to Australia, you work a job there, saving away as much as possible to do this as well, don't you?
Yeah, you're right. I've got a fantastic job in Australia on Phillip Island with a beautiful, beautiful community. And I've got about 15 little Chinese dumplings that I absolutely adore, that I get to teach about 4 nights a week. And they're so excited and curious about the adventure too. So, you know, I'm just constantly like stoked. I'm really, really lucky to end a tough day and then have, you know, my lovely little Chinese children with all their beautiful energy asking me about my day. And you know, they're just so kind. And I'm really lucky.
You know, Em, we've not gone in any logical flow with how your tour has started. Oh, no, I love this. It's been very organic and very, very much how this podcast goes. And often I have to think about my blind spot blindness here as well, because as an Aussie, I'm always keen to hear about countries I know nothing about. But a huge significant part of your tour actually took place in Australia, and I need to go there because I want to know what it was like riding an amazing distance through our amazing country. You've been to places that I've only read about. You've explored, you know, across Australia, up through WA, the Kimberley, Gibb River Road, all those sort of places. I want to know what that was like, because you definitely had some challenging times on the road there as well with your mate. You were there as a team of 2?
Yeah, my best mate. Shout out to Ben.
So tell me about riding through your own country.
Yeah, absolutely. So originally I probably thought, I'll just start in Indonesia. And I regret even having this thought. Why would I skip Australia? You know, and I was really excited to see a new culture. I'd been in Australia working for, 6 months, and I was just so itching to discover something new that I sort of didn't consider Australia. However, my best friend Ben, we planned about 3 years ago to kayak the west coast of Australia. Didn't go ahead as I got an opportunity to go to China, and I pulled the pin. Also, I'm not a kayaker. I probably would have detested that adventure. But he said, well, we spoke together. How about we start in Australia and we ride from Perth to Darwin, and then I'll see you off from there. And he fell in love with the adventure too. He ended up taking his bike across to East Timor, and he had his own adventure. But it's such a different Australia to what I've experienced, the West. Have you been to WA?
I have been to Perth and Fremantle. I've been, and even in my time, I was there for work, and I managed to extend it to have an extra 3 or 4 days there, and that was all I've seen. So I can't say that I've really been to WA, because all I've been to is like cities and a couple of beaches. I would love to explore further north of WA, and I think on a bike, even though it would be really, really challenging, not because of no hills, just extreme isolation, but amazing landscapes. Tell me all about it.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So we headed north up to Exmouth, Yeah, and pretty soon we got hit with some incredibly horrible fly situation. Flies. Horrible flies. Like we were not expecting flies. And it was just really, really horrible. However, I did listen to your recent podcast with someone who was, I think it was Kristen Ridley, who was taking on Alaska.
Oh, with the mosquitoes.
And I feel like I can't complain anymore, but the fly situation was really, it was horrible. You just have no respite from them. Kind of like Kristen's story.
No, none at all. They're horrendous. Were they just bush flies or were they march flies, like horse flies as well? Or
they were just your standard annoying fly that wants to get in your eye, in your nose, and even when you're pedaling, they don't give up.
no, they go about your speed too, which is horrendous.
Yeah, you're right.
In Africa, there's the tsetse fly. Oh, I'm trying to remember which country they're in. Is it Zambia or Tanzania or... Anyway, brace yourself for that.
Oh.
Did you have like a fly net?
You know, I had like a vegetable bag that was almost like a netting material that worked fantastic.
I love this.
I'll have to send you a photo. It was pretty pathetic.
You totally need to.
But, you know, Australia, I think me and Benny were both kind of disappointed with the wildlife aspect. We were really excited to be in WA, to see lizards, to see snakes, you know, even kangaroos or camels or something. But yeah, it was a bit of a letdown in general. Did see a couple of freshwater crocs as we got further north, which was exciting. And thankfully, we didn't see any saltwaters because we were crossing the Gibb River Road. Wow, probably the highlight of Australia. Absolutely amazing.
How many days did it take to cross the Gibb River Road? Like, that's a monumental trip with a lot of planning too, right? Because you're in pretty remote areas.
You're right. You know, it should have taken planning, but we're both useless. So
I love this.
No, it was shocking. I think poor Benny, we were getting at one point about 35% of our daily intake of food. And I can hope that Benny's a big, tall guy. And yeah, I think he was suffering quite a few days of you know, maybe a bit of, you know, dehydration and lack of food. So we did plan, you know, okay, we've got 14 days. Let's plan 7 days and then get someone to send up 7 days up the Gibb River. Because as you said, it's incredibly remote, rugged road. Corrugations, oh my gosh. Oh, it was painful. I don't know if you've cycled across corrugations, but like as a female.
Oh, they are horrendous.
Oh my gosh. I was it was really challenging.
Yeah. I actually, you know how I always ask the question at the end of the show, corrugation's now a headwind. I would choose headwind, and I hate a headwind. I've been in dirty headwinds. I think anyone who's truly gone on proper corrugations.
Yeah, it was slow going, and it was, I think, 600 km. I was like, it's relentless. However, the Gibb River Road was fantastic. River crossings with salt waters.
Oh my gosh. Well, hang on. Whoa, take me there, because they are an animal that I have a huge amount of respect for.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone was warning us leading up to the Pentecost, which is like the final... If you're heading north, east, yeah, it's the final crossing. And everyone was warning us, oh, you know, there's been sightings, there's going to be salt water, what are you going to do? When we got there, and we're sort of looking, and it's quite shallow. And Benny, you know, we asked a few people, and there was one typical bogan, let's call him, from Queensland. And this bogan wasn't impressed with our endeavour. And unfortunately, they were sort of giving us a lot of fear. Oh, there's so many, they're going to eat you. And I think Ben took that as a challenge. He was like, let's go, you know. And I'm so nervous. It was like the scariest 2 minutes of my life crossing this river. He said, no, we'll be able to see them. Then they're not going to be, you know, oh my gosh.
But see, sorry, I'm just going to pull back there. We'll be able to see them. And what are you going to do? Like, sorry. Like, hello, this is my anxious state playing in here, Em, but seeing a salty in the water as I'm crossing it doesn't fill me with confidence of survival.
That's true. I didn't question it. I was terrified. I was okay, let's just get across.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it was fine.
Did you see any?
Well, not any saltwaters, unfortunately, but some freshwater crocs. That was really cool to see.
So hang on, freshwater crocs compared to salties. Salties are the worst. Are freshwater still a bit of a predatory animal as well? Or are they more like alligators?
They're quite harmless, and unless you sort of jump on them or scare them, I think that's when they can become dangerous. But in general, like we went swimming and they were around us, not around us, but in the water with us. Yeah. My friend Ben, he's quite the expert. He's a huge reptile lover, so it was fantastic traveling with him.
Today I learned it's okay to swim with freshwater crocs.
Freshwater.
Whoa, wow. Yeah, I don't know. I think that would be a touching cloth moment for me. But so the Gibb River Road, like that would have just been mind-blowing scenery as well, and a sense of achievement getting from the start to the finish of that too, right?
Yeah. And you know what? We had a fantastic community of travelers as well in their vans. So we had we had water support, and there were some really amazing people doing the Walk of Australia with their kids, taking them out of school. So every now and then we linked back with them and we'd have a fire. You know, I think it was about day 10. Ben looked at me and he said, I don't think I'm ever going to be this wild again. And I don't think, this is the wildest that we're going to be. And we really were wild every night, camping under the most amazing stars.
Oh, the star skies would have been amazing.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was a really, really good experience to do. And I'm glad we decided to do it because a few people were trying to sort of turn us off the idea, like, oh, you really think that your bikes are going to survive the Gibb? Do you understand? And I think they just wanted to sort of, because they'd done it, perhaps they wanted to make sure that their achievement was credited. And if a couple of bike packers are going to go across the Gibb, it might not seem as tough as it is. But yeah, it's a fantastic place in the world. And I'd suggest absolutely any bike packer, no matter what bike you've got, just go for it. If me and Ben's bikes could do it, yeah. But maybe bring more food and snacks and water and yeah.
Would you suggest a bike with suspension to take on the corrugations if you had it?
Absolutely. The wrists, oh my gosh, the wrists jarring. But for me, it was my boobs. Like I left any perkiness at the start of the Gibb River. They were just, it was horrible. I had one hand on my chest, one hand on the handlebars.
Yeah, no, my sensitive regions I don't do. Oh gosh, I was going to say having a shower would be horrible, but there were probably times where you couldn't have a shower.
No. A lot of freshwater gorges that were just beautiful. Every day was swimming.
Mega. And the scenery from there, Em, you need to bombard me with photos, and listeners, I'll put these up because the scenery, that's what I would love to see. And I feel it's a special way to see it on a bike as well because let's be frank, actually seeing it in any other way is really damn expensive as well, which is why a lot of Australians have never actually been there. It sounds ridiculous. And environmental factors aside, which are huge, it's actually cheaper for us to go and have a European holiday than it is to actually go and see far northwestern Australia.
You're right.
Hey, awesome listeners. Are you loving what you're hearing on Seek Travel Ride? Do you want to keep the good vibes rolling? Then head over to our Buy Me a Coffee page and show your support for the podcast. Just a little virtual caffeine love can keep me brewing up the content which you adore. Click the link in the show notes, buy me a virtual coffee, and let's keep this podcast party going. Thanks, legends. Now back to the episode.
And I should also mention the incredible insight into Indigenous culture that I found in the Kimberleys, which I haven't experienced.
Tell me all about it. Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing. And I'll tell you a small story just to sort of describe it. It's a town called Derby, and it's the town that you sort of start the Gibb River Road from. Derby.
Hang on.
Derby.
Is this the Derby that Phil Hargreaves and Jamie Hargreaves he rode to and his son's riding to? It probably is.
Ooh, it could be.
Jamie, if you're tuning in, you need to do the full length of the Gibb River Road further on from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, keep going on.
Yeah. So this is a high population of Indigenous Australians living here. And as I set off, Ben had to fix his bike in town, and I wanted to get going. So I sort of set off and I said, okay, I'll find a camp spot. And I saw a community, an Indigenous community. I thought, okay, I'm just going to ride in and sort of just see if there's anyone to talk to learn something. Unfortunately, there was no adults or elders around. However, there was a bunch of kids playing football, of course, not Aussie football, actual soccer. And so put my bike down and I nervously asked, hey, can I join? Because there's a big sign next to the football field or whatever you would like to call it that said I don't know actually, but it was something like no white man. And it was $5,000 fine or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And straight away I thought, oh, but I probably don't belong here, and I don't want to, I want to be respectful, of course. There's a football game, and there's a bunch of cute kids, and so quickly had a bit of a kick around, and these kids were just adorable. They got on my bike, they wanted to ride around, and we're from Muddy Water. Where are you from? And they were so surprised, like, wow, Victoria, we want to go there. And it was really beautiful. But they left me with some advice. They said, be careful of, I can't remember what it was called, but something like, be careful of the Muddy Water, And I said, oh, yeah, what is that? Big dark demon on the Gibb River, be careful. And they have such beautiful stories in Indigenous culture, just incredible storytellers. And so from these, 10-year-old boys telling me to be careful, I took it quite seriously. And so I remember every night on the Gibb River Road having just incredible dreams. And I don't know what it was. I have no idea. But being in such remote, powerful country for the Indigenous Australians, I thought it was really fascinating. And seeing a fair few communities along the Gibb River. We got water and snacks given by a family. Yeah, it's a difficult situation, as you know, as an Australian. And I think that we ought to celebrate such an incredible culture way more in Australia. I think we've failed in many ways, and I'm sure you agree. So it was really cool for me to get that.
1,000,000% agree. It was interesting. Like, part of my curiosity there had actually been... It's funny, it's almost a sense of shame even just thinking that I had it as a question, but like, were any of your water filters in need in those areas? And because I do feel like a sense of failure for our First Nations people. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually hadn't initiated the water cycle project nor had filters on me prepared, as I really didn't expect there would be a need.
Would there have been a need there?
I've learned that there definitely is, and there definitely are. Whether, I don't exactly know why. I'd love to do some more research, and when I return to Australia to understand more about remote communities and where they get their water from, how they treat it. Obviously, it's very dry as well, this region. But I'm so grateful to have my own filter on this trip now. Like, it's just incredible the amount of water you can access with a filter, the less amount of plastic you have to buy. It's just fantastic.
The filter you use as well, I think we should give out a shout out to the filter company. Are you on the Sawyer Squeeze?
Yeah, you're right. So
incredible company as well.
Yes, fantastic. Yeah, from the US. And I think that every bike packer should travel with one. And once they finish their journey, maybe leave it with a community. I think that'd be fantastic.
Oh, I think that's a beautiful project. And actually, shout out, if there are bike packers heading to the Gibb River Road, take some water filters with you. Or wherever you're going, take them with you. I think that's such a beautiful thing. And I know a lot of people can get hung up on, weight of their bikes and all of that sort of stuff. But I don't know. I feel like that type of weight doesn't count.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, listeners, if you notice a little bit of a sound difference, it's because we have tech stuff going on. Emily's had to unplug her headphones and plug in her phone charger, which is totally fine. Em, how are you doing there?
Oh, good. Sorry.
No need for sorries. We are all good. Do you look back then? I often find this is an interesting question because especially with someone who's on a bike project like you are. But if I was to speak about the word of pride, what are you most proud of with what you have done so far on a bike? And it seems like a hard question to ask someone who is so modest, but stuff it, I've asked it anyway.
Wow. I think I'm most proud of my bike because my bike has survived and is a really average rubbish bike. In fact, it's so bad that last week in China, a bike packer, shout out to Rick, he's ridden from the Netherlands over to China and he rode it down the street and he said to me, I would not ride this down a hill.
Thanks for giving you confidence, right?
But he's a bike mechanic. And anyway, I am so proud that it's, I probably spent a couple of $100. I got my panniers the day I left for about $30 off Facebook. And I think I'm most proud about my bicycle and the fact that you really can travel cheap. And I don't believe you necessarily need all the fancy gear to make it happen. Yeah.
You have also had to deal with your fair share of mechanicals. In fact, we were talking about Australia.
Yes.
How many spokes did you break in Australia, Emily?
Yeah, so I think just in one day, I'm proud of my bike, but I have had a few problems. In one day, I put 10 litres of water on the back. We had about a 300-kilometre section of nothingness. And, That day, 12 spokes broke.
12 in a day. Did you even have a wheel? You had a taco? Like, what? Oh my gosh. So are you like a wheel rebuilding extraordinaire now?
Oh,
Like, is this your superpower? You can fix a spoke?
absolutely not.
And how many spare spokes do you take with you?
You know, there's such a magic. I called David. I said, David, help me. You know, what do I... Oh, that's black magic. You're not going to learn spoke, tuning, in the desert. Take that to a shop. So I had about 300 more kilometers till I got to Karatha. And he said, you need a new wheel. We can't even tune the wheel. Like, this is disaster. And I've had a few spokes keep going, but I just can't do it. I just can't do it. It's really difficult. Just tuning spokes.
It is. It's a skill that I want to learn.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things, like I think it's slowly but surely with like a spoke wrench and stuff like that. Is it even called a spoke wrench?
Spoke tool,
There's like a little tool.
I've given it a go and I just make it worse.
Because I think you can take a wheel totally out of true as well if you don't do the right thing. Like you can turn a nice true wheel into like a taco wheel too, going the wrong way. But
physics. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, Benny had a lot of problems. He had a tire just burst, which is the scariest thing. Sudden explosion of a tire when you're riding in the desert is not cool. So we ended up having to stay in a petrol station, I think, for 2 days and wait for a shipment to come up. And yeah, a few problems. I actually accidentally put the pedals on the wrong way once I flew it to Indonesia, and that just destroyed the threading. And so I had to get with that new crank. So yeah, I'm not a cyclist. I'm not really very good at this stuff, but yeah, I'm proud of my bike still. The frame is still with me.
Does the bike have a name?
It does have a name. It's got a long story, which I won't share, but it's called Little Fish, and it sort of changes in each country. So in China, it's Xiaoyu. I'm excited to get to Spain, so it can be Pescadito. But I don't know the Indian name for it, so I'm going to find it.
Oh, I'm wondering in France.
In French, what
would it be? Petit Poisson?
Oh, that's so cute. I can't wait to get to France then.
Oh, well, you're coming to the Pyrenees, right?
Yeah.
Riding some...
For sure.
We'll give you a bike of service when you get here.
Please.
What are you most looking forward to then, Em? Like, you do have a good chunk of the world still left to see on the water cycle tour. What is filling you with excitement?
Wow. Oh, honestly, every day. And I know that might sound cliche, but I wake up every day like, oh my gosh, what's to see today? But let's say more general... Wow, India. I'm in India. I can't wait to get into sort of like the northern regions, up to Ladakh. I'm really excited to get into the north of Pakistan. And I've got a feeling I might not make it over the stands this winter. And if that's the case, I will spend a significant amount of time again in China because I obviously have to re-enter from Pakistan. And I'm totally excited about that. Iran is a dream. Let's see what happens. Hopefully I can maybe even find a friend to join me. Maybe I'll link up with Maddie. Everything. Absolutely everything. I can't wait. Hopefully I get plenty more water filters so I can continue distributing throughout definitely India and Pakistan. I see there's a big need globally, but yeah, I'm really, really excited. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that's really, really cool about bike travel is your plans change too. There is a beauty in being flexible and needing to be flexible more than wanting to be flexible. Like there is just a need in flexibility for a bike tour, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, my plans, Bella. I was meant to be in England by Christmas. Like, my plans are definitely changing a lot. And it's beautiful. We're so lucky, I'm specifically super, super lucky to have the flexibility that I have, yeah.
There's definitely fortune of like passport privilege and circumstance and stuff, but there is also a very, very big element here, where you're being modest because you are actually making this happen for yourself as well. Like it is, you are choosing to do this, but you're working hard to do this. So I think allow yourself to feel lucky, I guess, is the way that I would plant it.
Yeah.
Something that strikes me, notwithstanding the absolute beauty and the purpose of the water cycle, there is also the other side of bike travel, which is finding out more about countries, about meeting strangers, having those intense conversations, feeling the community and solidarity within the little places that you are. And then there's also the beauty of the landscapes and the awe that amazing, huge landscapes give you. I'd love you to tell me about a moment of awe, somewhere where you just felt the size of a teeny tiny ant and Mother Nature just felt amazing all around you.
Okay, wow, that's a good question. I won't talk about the Gibb River because we've already got into the Kimberleys in Australia, but that will be up there. And I would last 2 weeks ago, I rode, oh my gosh, so high up in the mountains of Yunnan, China. I saw my first snow-capped mountains in the distance. This was incredible. I remember I called my mum straight away. I was like, look. She had no idea what she was seeing. And I'm like, can't you see it? Snow-capped mountains. My bicycle has gone from the deserts of Australia to these mountains. And Aussies, we don't really have the joy of seeing too many big mountains like as you see. And for me, it was just, that was special. And there's an incredible amount of humanity in this region of China. People are so generous. And you really feel like you're amongst some real huge humans. And it's just beautiful. So it was a big combination, delicious food, incredible mountains, and real people that have deep humanity, I think. Yeah, it was just fantastic. Yeah, loved it. Yeah, I cried, actually.
Can I ask, when you were saying that you may go back to China because just with timings and weather and crossing the Pamirs, will you go back to the same region or you try and seek out to explore a new area of China?
Yeah. So many places in China I'd love to cycle. Different food, different culture, different ethnic groups. There's so much. I'd love to see different nature. And just to continue improving my Mandarin would just be fantastic. Yeah, it'd be great. Let's see.
I'm sure your Mandarin would run circles around a lot of people, but I can understand also what it's like as a foreigner speaking a different language as well. Like there is an element where you can do it, but there's an element where you go, oh my gosh, there's so much that I still don't know.
Yeah, you understand, right? With French, you think you get somewhere and then you realize you're still so far behind. But yeah, it's a good journey.
We talked about wild camping earlier. Do you feel you're more comfortable wild camping now? Like, I'm not talking about the act of setting up tent and all of that sort of stuff. I just mean, like, do you feel comfortable wild camping in general? Or it really depends where you are, obviously.
Yeah, good question. I feel really comfortable almost everywhere. Obviously, now I'm in India. I'm definitely going to reconsider sort of where I'm camping. But up until now, I think I've gotten really relaxed, maybe a little too relaxed. But the last few places in China, waking up outside a coffee shop practically and people everywhere. Yeah, I'm pretty brave on that front, I think. Maybe more scared of a fine because no one wants a fine. In Australia, we were so worried to wake up to a fine. But yeah, I definitely have a lot of faith in people. And just, I think now I've got to sort of like reconsider a few things. Now I'm in India, I'm a little bit more aware, perhaps.
I want to move on to a superficial question, which sounds silly. Like we're talking about your bike and it's not a fancy bike, and we're talking about, your panniers are with water filters. But I want to know, what's an item that you're taking with you that you might call a luxury item, but you couldn't do without and it has to come with you?
Wow. Probably my iPad because I'm teaching every night or quite a lot of nights. So I consider that like quite a luxury. I've got a Kindle and I've got an iPad. And I've got like I've got quite a few stones, like crystals that I was given from people. So I'm carrying like a bit of weight in like rocks and crystals.
Is this just like from random people along the way?
Actually, mostly from friends in Australia that, wanted to wish me well. And I've got, a few healing crystals, a few for, safety on the road crystals. And I just am a bit scared to get rid of them because maybe they're helping.
They're like your little luck charms.
Yeah.
Are they your version of like a little bike mascot? Or do you have one of them as well?
I don't. I actually had a guitar for like most of my trip, but I've recently left it with Maddie. I gave it to Maddie in China. I told him to learn guitar because I couldn't bring it to India.
The music lives on.
Yeah.
You're pretty artistic there. I did mention earlier, like poetry is something that you're really into as well.
I think it's interesting, poetry. I definitely wouldn't call myself a poet, but I have so many moments in life where I don't know how to comprehend the situation, be it inequality, and it just seems to naturally if I write a poem, I can sort of express how I deeply feel about a situation of injustice usually. And yeah, I wouldn't say I'm very good, but it's really my way to express how I feel.
Because that idea of injustice, I remember when I was swapping messages with you a couple of months ago about, vicarious trauma and stuff, and we were talking about travel and the social justice and travel and the place in culture to travel and stuff like that. That's something you've pondered about quite a lot as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I can tell you an interesting story that happened yesterday talking about these levels of injustice and inequality. And I'm sitting right now talking to you from a mansion in Kolkata. And this is a really interesting story. My friend joined me yesterday and she told me that her mother had a good friend in Kolkata. So he invited us to stay. We got the filters sent to him and we entered his house. And it's like yours, 300 years old. However, this house used to serve the British monarchy back when it was under.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. And it's huge. It's like the size of a high school. And last night he said, okay, you're coming to my uncle's dinner because it's an auspicious day for his deity. It's a Hindu day, festivity. And he said, but I bought you a bottle of shampoo. I want to make sure you don't have any head lice. Because the worst thing that could happen is we're at this fancy dinner party and head lice fall on your plate. He said, I know you've spent the last week down in the slums of Sundarban. And I didn't know what to say. He's a really lovely and kind host. And so anyway, obviously, we took our showers, we wore our pants, we went to this dinner party and talk about wealth. Wow. It was, again, a mansion in Kolkata. So we drive there, past the slums, past the people sleeping on the streets, the children begging. We get to this mansion. And Bella, first thing, we have to sit at the very front and listen to some music. And it's very beautiful Hindu music. Everyone's really beautifully dressed. It's a very interesting introduction to Indian culture. And she's talking about some mythology in Hindi. And I have this horrible habit of getting the giggles in like the worst times. And I consider myself a respectful person, Bella. But all of a sudden, we're in this really fancy, pristine room. And I'm at the front, like, really, like, giggling away at myself. And I can't, I had to, like, focus so much. There's some paintings behind her. And I'm focusing so much on these paintings just to keep my cool. And I can't help it. All the worst times, I just seem to just get the giggles. Anyway, so the event finishes and we've been warned about conversation, what we can talk about. Don't talk about the poor. They don't like the poor, quote unquote. Don't tell them that you're sleeping in your tent or that you sleep in a car in Australia. They don't want to know that. And so the conversation is, so what do you do? I'm like, yeah, I'm a teacher. And then it's really uncomfortable for me because, as you can imagine, I'm not really into this world. And anyway, my friend, we get like a buffet. So we're in this expensive living room and we're sitting on a pristine couch. And my friend accidentally spills all her dal bhat onto me and onto the couch. All of these heads are turned. The man next to me stands up to get something. I rip his, I'm not sure what the male equivalent of sari is, but his clothes. I just hear this rip. And it's just an absolute disaster. So she's trying to like clean my shirt and I'm still being introduced to people at the same time. I'm giggling away like, we just don't belong here. We don't belong here. And it was absolutely just a disaster. And what a contrast from my first few days in India to then be in this world. And I'm sitting in this mansion that is actually being looked after by thugs. We call it the thug mansion because there's like 6 thugs, they call them, outside, making sure that no one will come and live in here because it's empty. Just the host. Oh, it's just absolutely bizarre. And it's just fantastic, but it's wild. So talk about this, social justice and stark inequality. I think so far this has been the greatest extremes I've seen, and I'm not really sure what to do about it. I haven't even been able to process anything yet. I'm just sort of living it and holding, biting my tongue.
You're going to write a pretty in-depth poem. Oh my gosh, because I was thinking, when you were talking about the slums,
yeah,
just be the intense head in your face of seeing that level of poverty and stuff as well, right? And there's a discomfort in that too because I don't want to put my feelings into your feelings, but I would feel, and I don't consider myself a wealthy person, but I know that I am in a lot of places, and I would just feel really out of place there. And yet on the other side of town, just in the same town, you've got these people living this extreme thing. Oh, I think I'd feel so uncomfortable in that situation as well. That's wild. It must be so hard to process, Em. I imagine that you'll be heading into the mountains with all those weird thoughts, trying to think, what have you just experienced? But you're a bit of a surfer, so I'm curious, do you pine for, catching waves as well? Have you been able to do much surfing at all on this trip?
Wow. I'm not sure I would say I'm a surfer. I love the ocean. I love surfing. I love all ocean sports. And I was so lucky throughout Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand to be constantly on the beach. However, I'm really excited to get into the mountains. And yeah, I can't wait to head into the high Himalayas.
Oh, I can totally bet. Oh, the high Himalayas, my heart would just be singing. I am a huge mountain lover, and the mountains I've experienced are teeny tiny compared to the mountains there. And I talk about feeling the size of an ant. I'd be like the size of a minuscule ant there, I imagine. Oh gosh, Em, we've come to the point where I need to wrap the show up, and I hate doing it with someone like you. How can people find out more about you, but more importantly, how can people get on board with the water cycle as well?
Yeah, absolutely. If people are interested, just shoot a message to either me or my friend Shawnee. I think we mentioned both of those accounts. And yeah, would absolutely love it. I've got a pretty big dream to start a big community of people that are interested in either water cycle, or I've got a plan, maybe a solar cycle where we can get solar lights into possibly in Africa further down the track. So yeah, I'd love for people to follow and get involved whenever they can. It would be just amazing to start a big community.
Oh my gosh, absolutely brilliant. And I'd love to use the pod as a way to help make that happen somehow. If I can somehow give you a voice to people to help get on board, I'm all aboard figuring out ways to do that. So I'll talk online about that with you as well.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Em, time to wrap it up. 3 quick questions. You already know what they are. The first one's music related. Someone who just gave up their guitar. What song are you going to pick to be the soundtrack to your adventure?
I can't believe I haven't thought of this yet. Okay, I'm going to choose... Wow. Oh my gosh, nothing's coming to mind right now. Okay. Oh, you know what? My favorite song I actually got from your podcast playlist, so I can't use that one because it's already on there. Yeah, okay, I'm going to choose a song called Whatever Turns You On. I'm not sure who it's by. I can sing it for you. I'll send it to you. It's just a really
You can
fun...
sing me a line now and send it to me. I love that.
Whatever turns you on, I'm going where you're going. Yeah, it's a really upbeat song, so...
All right, Whatever Turns You On by an artist with a beat like that.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes out on the playlist, listeners. And for people that ask me how do I find the playlist, I've linked it to the podcast in Spotify. It's also on Apple Music. If you go into Spotify and click more or about this, you will see it linked there as well. Okay, next 2 questions. We sort of talked about this first one. It'd be interesting to see what you're going to say. You're given a choice, M. Hulbert. You can go left and you will have a day ahead of you where you will be pedaling on endless corrugations just like those on the Gibb River Road. Or you can turn right and you will be pounded in the face by a never-ending headwind. Which one are you going to choose?
I'm going to take the headwind. I can't do corrugations anymore. I just can't do it. It's just teeth chattering. I would take the headwind, I think.
I'm there with you on Team Headwind. I don't know if I've ever outed myself as being on Team Headwind when it comes with corrugations, but I'm there with you. So
Horrible question.
If we're ever in Patagonia together dealing with Patagonian headwinds, we can just both cry in a ditch and remind ourselves apparently it's better on the corrugations.
Oh, no.
Oh, and final question, and I'm really, really looking forward to the answer to this one, is I want you to finish the sentence for me,
Ooh.
and that is the best thing about taking a bike adventure is.
The best thing about taking a bike adventure is, wow, to sew yourself into the tapestry of humanity and to see the magic in the ordinary places that people don't go. Yeah, the magic in the ordinary. Someone else's reality to me is just absolutely incredible sometimes. And then, yeah, I think it's really, really amazing to travel by bike as a vessel to experience this.
Oh my gosh, the magic in the ordinary. I absolutely love that message. Even just those words, it's poetry in motion there. I love it. M. Hulbert, it's taken me probably a good year of pestering you to get this session in the can. And I don't know about you, but I am super energized and upbeat about the awesome conversation we have just had. Learning these cool insights into your story, learning about, the ridiculous first time where you bought a bike from Walmart to ride to Mexico, to the bizarre situations you found yourself in, to being able to see the students you've taught in China, but also more about the impactful gift that you are giving to so many people around the world, where you are visibly making such a tangible difference to so many people. What an absolute honour, what an absolute privilege it has been to spend time with you. I cannot wait to meet you in person and to share and swap more stories and listen to you talk about these adventures. When I go on a tour to some of these type of places, I know I'm packing water filters into my panniers, and I hope that you have inspired so many bike travellers that are tuning in here to do the absolute same. All is to say, Hulbert, what an absolute legend you are. Thank you so, so much for coming on the podcast here and sharing your stories and experiences on Seek Travel Ride.
Oh, Bella, thank you so much. And thank you for giving us a community. I've created a lot of connections through your podcast. And I think it's really, really important, especially in this time in history in the world. I think that we really need to lean into these connections. And I'm super grateful. So thank you so much.
Well, listeners, I don't know about you, but I am beyond energized having spoken to Hulbert. She is a fantastic example of how just one person can make such a massive difference. And genuinely, if you are tuning into this show as a bike traveller, or perhaps you're someone who doesn't bike travel themselves but loves hearing the stories of these adventurers and is able to make a tangible difference by supporting the water cycle, please check the links in the show notes that I have provided, or simply even reach out to me. My email is podcast@seektravelride.com, and I will let you know how you can get on board with the water cycle and spread the water filters all around the world in places of need. Now, if you're enjoying tuning into the podcast and want to think about how you can support me and the show, feel free also to click the link and buy me a coffee. I'm an independent podcaster. I do this all off my own bat, trying to spread the stoke and wanderlust for bike adventures far and wide. So if you've gotten any value out of listening to these episodes and want to see them continue, you can head to buymeacoffee.com/Seek Travel Ride. Buy me a virtual coffee, but more importantly, let me know what is it that you enjoy the most about tuning into the show. And until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.